Well then, so I guess we can do some introductions before we get started, I guess, and um, we can go from there. Thank you so much, Andy, from joining us from where? Where are you at? Are you in London?
I'm in Chesterfield, which is around the middle of the country.
Close.
Close,
Just
yeah.
so there we have it. Chesterfield in the house, baby. All right, who's gonna go? All right, so I guess we'll let you start, Andy. Just share a little bit about kind of yourself and I know you're part of the person-centered community and have known Dr. Goldman for some time, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I hesitate to say I'm part of the community because I'm probably against a lot of the person-centered community at large.
Oh,
As
never
in, like,
mind.
I go to a lot of the conferences and I tend to disagree with most of the people there. But
Oh, but hopefully, you and Dr. Goldman are on the same page about
I think
things. She's
so,
not
yeah.
here. She's resting right now. She was in the ER
Yeah.
last night for some hours, so.
But I'll do a very brief introduction, hopefully is relevant to today. Um, I think I've really been focusing on just offering person centered as a practitioner over the last few years. I've offered other things in the past, but this is where I'm at the moment, so that's why I'm here to talk specifically about congruence. But who knows if it goes somewhere else? I'm very happy for it to go there because I have a small understanding of the setup with you guys, so I didn't want today to be limited just to congruence if it feels like people want to talk about other stuff.
Okay, great. Yeah, one of the conditions um, of client-centered work, congruence, very, very important for us all to have throughout our experiences in session, as a clinician. So thank you so much for your introduction. I guess we can go around. I'm Patrick, one of the owners, and definitely hardcore client-centered in my
Hardcore.
approach. Hardcore client-centered, yeah. I'm not. I don't really play around with the other shit. And if they want me to, they can go somewhere else.
Sure.
Alrighty, but yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We also have Honey the cat joining us. She's near the electric. I think she can't stand another presentation, so she's gonna electrocute herself. But thanks, Honey. Alrighty, I'll just go. We can just go like a snake. So to Miss Shubra, take it away, and then we'll snake down to Blake and go from there.
Sure, I can't hear you.
You should try reading her lips.
I can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 yep, there we have it.
Okay. So my name is Shubra. I'm going to be starting with East Oral Counseling in November. And it's too early. I know a person-centered is also one of my approaches that I want to start with. But again, too early to stick to one theoretical orientation. But definitely, client-centered or person-centered is one of the things that I do believe that gives a lot of insight into a client. So I'm excited to learn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to respond to people?
Go for it.
Is that
Just find
okay?
a way.
So Shubra, have you done any? Because this will help me get to know who's here and sort of tailor it to the people here. Have you practiced as a counsellor, or is this the first course you're doing? And
This will be the first course. Anything that I have has been just like mock, but not like in a real setting.
okay, thank you.
Alrighty. My name is Blake. I say them pronouns. I had the privilege of attending the first congruence presentation that you had, Andy, at the conference. And I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of questions. I'm new to most of everything. I do case management here at East River Counseling. I also supervise the other case management externs. And I also do front desk administration here as well. And I'm at the lounge space right now, which is where we see our foundation clients. And if you see a cat or two cats on the screen, they are really cuddly and they love the laptop for some reason. So I apologize for that if you just see a cat on the screen at one point.
Nice. Good to see you again, Blake.
All right, ma'am, take it away in the middle. Marsha Brady,
Who's that?
aka Vladanka.
Oh.
We're like the Brady Bunch right now with all these squares.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vladanka Mitrovic. So I am intern in East Aurora Counseling, and I am marriage family therapist.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So,
Vladanka, what's your orientation when you're doing marriage counselling? What's the style?
I start person-centered therapy, but I kind of, because in marriage family therapy we do more like connected, with the family. I don't know how to explain. So I am kind of stuck because I'm pretty much new. So like in my head, I have a lot of what I want, what I learn, like to use a ganogram, or to use a miracle question on beginning, and how to start. I have everything in my head, but somehow I feel like I can hold it and wait for client to do how he feel comfortable. So I'm still learning, like practice. I feel like I have a lot in my head, but I need to sort it out where to go.
Cool, thanks.
So
Oh, thanks, Vladanka. All right, we'll just go to the stranger behind the brown door, or in front of the brown door. Miss Glasses.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Doralee Vargas. I have been interning with East Aurora Counseling since the beginning of May. I have a mix of child age clients and adult clients, and I have one family case. So far since I started interning, I've been doing a lot of like person-centered therapy, as well as client-centered play therapy. It's definitely been a great place here to practice person-centered therapy, but once I finish my internship, I'm definitely open to learning more about like CBT, DBT, solution-based focus therapy, other theoretical and therapeutic approaches. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you. She stuck around since May, so that's a good sign. Alrighty, thank you, Doralee. All right, Miss Auburn hair or reddish brown mahogany hair.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Oops. All right. My name is Desiree Romualdo, and I am currently a student at Aurora University, pursuing my degree in social work as a generalist for now. I'm interning here at East Aurora Counseling as well as a case manager.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, last but not least, looks like there's a stranger bombing our Zoom. Are you supposed to be in here, stranger?
I assume that's me. Hi,
You think
I'm
you're
sorry.
clever, don't you?
I'm transitioning through different spaces today, but I really wanted to listen in. So I am Brittany Means. I just started with East Aurora Counseling as an intern the first week of August. And my personal theoretical orientations are, I'm still feeling them out, but I've probably identified prior to coming here the most with Adlerian and a little bit of CBT techniques. But I am really trying to just learn person-centered and lean into that and see kind of how it feels as I'm trying on different orientations.
You go for it. And keep going. You got this. Alrighty. and at this point we are all done with our introductions, and Andy, take it away with wherever you want to take it.
Sure. So thank you, Patrick. So I have a structure. Blake has seen it, and there's like some format to it. But in this environment now, because I've heard something about how you guys are at Easter Aurora, it would be really good to make it more dynamic. So what I've heard generally from you guys is that it's quite mixed. No, I don't think I heard anyone say like they're fully set on being person-centered and that's where they're going. So a lot of you guys are exploring what the other types of therapy are, or you're thinking, well, I use some of person-centered but some other stuff. So when I'm talking about congruence, I'm being very narrow in my definition, because I think the word congruence is a normal word. Like I think it's like it has a meaning to normal people, and I think they generally mean that person's being congruent. It's like what they're saying is real. It's coming through them. Like they say what they mean, that sort of thing. That seems to be the common understanding of congruence in the wider field, and I think, and this is my concern, there's overlap between that and the definition within person-centered therapy. And I suppose I'm here to draw the line and say there shouldn't be overlap. And I think this is where I disagree with a lot of my peers, because I don't believe self-disclosure is a requirement in person-centered therapy. Whereas I think from hearing people, they get to a point in offering what they would call person-centered. They get to a point in the session where, for whatever reason, they go, oh, now I'm going to tell the client I'm angry, or I'm going to bring something of myself to the relationship. And they might have different intentions with that, but they think it's being congruent. So I think I'm disagreeing with that. Does that make sense so far? Does anyone... Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. If at any point you have a very... you really want to talk about something, please either raise your hand or, I don't know, is there a chat thing? You might be able to throw something in the chat.
Yeah, there could be a chat we can keep an eye on for any notifications, but I don't know. I mean, everyone's got their mics off. I mean, feel free, everyone, to just turn the mic off if you want.
Yeah.
This can be more of a, perhaps I'm understanding, open kind of process discussion.
I think I wanted to aim for more of an interactive discussion rather than a lecture. I can do the lecture, it's quite a short one, but I think it will be more useful and meaningful if it's individual basis.
Yeah, and pop up. I've always kind of related to congruence in the way that you've defined congruence in your reading, and also as a way that I've kind of tried to explain it in our group supervisions when we've gone over the conditions. I don't know how much of congruent, in the sense of congruence, that I've used in terms of self-disclosure in session, apart from perhaps like when there's something they're sharing and it definitely hits me intensely in a way. I know that sometimes I've just kind of shared about what I've been going through as they were sharing it, but congruence to those two definitions you provided is how I've usually related to it. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that at all.
And Patrick, when you share in that way, do you have an intention with sharing it? Do you have a goal, or what happens for you?
I think in the moment it's about me kind of feeling so connected and caring so much for the client in terms of what they're sharing and feeling so much for them in terms of what they're going through because I'm just experiencing I'm just so in tune. It's usually with clients that I just feel really in tune with and I really feel like a really strong connection with and have been working with for some time that sometimes at times I'll just share it, but it doesn't happen too often for me, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
It
think
could be bits of like emotions that are really difficult for them to experience or emotions that are really wonderful for them to experience. It could just be either way. Yeah.
nice.
As
And
a,
it's just,
saying like, let's say, because I don't practice therapy, I practice case management. But I'm just kind of wondering if a client discloses something awful that happened to them, and then if I say, I'm angry for you, is that also considered self-disclosure? And would you recommend that what are your opinions on that? Like saying that, oh, I'm angry for you, to express that to the client.
So I'm angry for you. That would be your response to knowing that about the client in their situation.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't think it has relevance within person-centered therapy. It doesn't sound terrible, but it will probably take things away from the client's process.
Thank you.
Sure. I did see a therapist who said that to me, and it didn't have much effect, but it didn't add to the process.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
So I think one of the ideas is internal congruence. And I think the important part about that is that we don't know when we're incongruent by definition. Because if we knew, then we'd be able to just sort it out and become congruent. So that can be tricky in therapy when we're being as relational as possible with someone, when we're trying to be transparent and connected to them. We don't know what is hidden from our own experience as we're in contact. And in person-centered therapy, the way I'm working is to offer a certain environment, the core conditions. So my rough gauge, and I think I wrote this in that bit of writing, if I can know when I'm offering that, and when I feel that connection with the client, the most I can say is, well, I know when I've lost that. And when I lose that, I'm going to assume it's because of my end. Because it's something I'm practicing offering. If it's gone, it's probably a block within myself. Does that make sense?
it does make sense, especially if you have something kind of like, I don't know if this is kind of what maybe you're referring to, but like it's almost like sometimes when there's something that is going on sometimes, like right before a session, that does kind of bring up intense response, but it happens like an hour or like even 10 minutes before the meeting. I think sometimes for me, I at least I can only speak for myself, but like I found that I found like a disconnect, and I almost feel like it's like this wall, like this mental wall that I hit from being able to be like fully grounded and present with the client and engage in their experience. I feel like my experiences that maybe happened the hour, 2 hours, day beforehand sometimes can hinder my ability to be there. And I can notice when it's not there. I don't feel settled. I feel like there's something that's pulling me away.
Yeah, Patrick, I think you talk about a very important aspect, which I don't think is really written about, and that's about concentration and attention. and the ability to bring that kind of focused presence where you put all of your own stuff aside and you're completely there with the client. And I think it is basically like a spiritual presence. It's a real meditative focus. You're in that room with the person, taking in all of their experience. And, if something really tips you over just before a session, then that can hinder that for sure. I think that could definitely be a block. Yeah. And then I think at that point, I'd be trying as best as possible to get back on track rather than try and make it about the client or try and, I'm not sure what people do. I would just be trying to get back on track if I can. It might be too much. You might have to say to the client, actually today, my dog's just died and my head's somewhere else. I need to cancel it. Who knows?
Yeah. In that case, I definitely would. But I think I don't know, we have a lot of random things come up here that are so spontaneous and so unexpected that sometimes it can be hard, or like if we're not feeling connected maybe to a client that we're working with. I don't know. For whatever reason, maybe our judgments come in about the experience with them. Any judgments we have that may be inhibiting us from being able to be, to have that contact, that connection with them in a way, can sometimes lead, I don't know, to incongruence sometimes, for me at least. But
yeah, I think that definitely happens. I was working with a couple and the guy was saying something that really bugged me, and in my head I was thinking, that is not cool. And I found it really hard to stay connected empathically with him because I was just like, it's like stuck in my mouth for a bit.
Yeah.
I think there's something I want to say, because I think I can be a bit of a perfectionist with this, and I think in the theory you can talk very perfectly about this, but it's much more messy in the room. There's no way someone's offering 100% person-centeredness for the whole duration. I think it's a theoretical perfection only. So in the room, there's like a flux. So you're going to feel that flux and hopefully know when it comes and goes. But that's okay, I think. That's part of it.
Definitely. I think I've received some feedback to where, from students, to where it's like, oh, I noticed that you were a bit more directive in this session. And it's like, maybe I've switched just because of how long I've worked with them, and maybe we've gotten to a flow of things that maybe works for the client, to where I've just automatically jumped into that mode, and I wasn't sure if that's where they wanted to be at, if that's where they were at that day with how the interaction wanted to be. So yeah.
Are you talking there, Patrick?
Makes a lot of sense.
Are you saying there that you practice therapy on the students, or do the students get to see like a recording or something?
They observe.
Oh.
Yeah, they observe the interactions, especially early on in their placement, to get a feel for kind of like what it just looks like to be in this role, So.
And that's in the same room, so there'll be a few of you in the room.
Same room. Sometimes if they're like virtual that day, but I mean, observations would be beneficial. They could be over video, but see like more of a overall, try to at least see like a full view of kind of the interaction, both from not just a verbal but also nonverbal perspective as well.
Yeah, nice. Any questions? Any thoughts, comments so far? What's happening in the group?
I don't know, guys, you're a little quiet today. Wonder what's not being said here.
Still nothing wants to be said. Okay.
Still nothing. Man, I'm dying up here. Come on, people.
Vedanka, what's up?
I have something, but I feel like what Patrick saying, he will be like directive sometimes. I feel like it's natural when you're connected with the client. when you're like not thinking, you're totally into it, like a friend. So I mean, we should be like more like a present, like thinking, but I think like we're human, so it's like that's how I feel that I would be. I mean, I will try to be professional, but I feel like I am there now, right now, like when I feel comfortable, like so I would be like
I think I
not
get.
suggesting, but like asking questions that can lead somewhere
Yeah.
in one direction, and I maybe shouldn't.
And I suppose my question would be, are you okay with that being your practice? Because you might be okay and say, well, that's me, I know how I practice. Or are you saying, well, I wish I was more non-directive?
With me, I think I wish I'm less direct, like stay in, being more quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like
being
more listening, like I'm listening, but I was like, I feel like I have something to say. So I'm like, I'm learning that.
Yeah. So you might be sitting with the client and in your head you've got the idea that you want to be taking it all in, listening, but then sometimes you might feel a bit more like their friend or getting so into it that something comes up and you want to...
Yeah. Sometimes I feel client is so smart and I want to suggest, oh, this book is so good for you.
Sure.
So it's so related for that. But I was like, no, not yet. Maybe,
Maybe there's like a mixture of like, I want to say something and I feel like this is really gonna, also maybe as all of us are newer, kind of trying to paint ourselves in a light where it's like, okay, maybe at the back of our minds we want to show them like we know what we're doing, or like we also have maybe there's also a genuine care for the client as well, wanting them to be at a place where, wanting them to go to a place that or a direction that you feel like is good for them because you really want to help, but that can be sometimes a tricky tightrope to walk. At least I found.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of those points, Patrick. That certainly I hope they think I'm a good therapist.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm working with someone, I hope I am doing a good job. And
I'm feeling competent in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, probably more earlier on, the mentality I had was, this is before I focused on just offering person-centered. I thought of myself as a therapist with a toolbox. So that would be used to match whatever might come up with the client. So then I might suggest a book, or I might suggest a course or a technique or something. But I don't really do that anymore. I do think I sometimes still suggest books, but it's usually if they ask.
Right.
I still didn't. It just still in my head. I still want it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I think in that moment there was a congruence too there, where it was like kind of like I really want to offer. I don't know. It sounded like congruence to me, where it's like you wanted to offer that book, and you noticed you really wanted to, but maybe you didn't because maybe there was a piece of you trying to stay with kind of what the client was possibly, yeah.
But I think in that example, Vladanka, if they said, "Oh, do you know of any book?" Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm waiting for that. Or like videos. There is the short videos really relate on that. I feel like the client can succeed, to have more self-confidence because, what's happening, he can he can heal and become something really big because he has potential. So I want to give him a lot of example where people become really not famous, but successful, in a life, happy and everything. So that's why I want to tell.
Yeah.
It will pass. You're on the right way. You're almost there.
Mm. I think I hear that. There's a want to bring a positivity into this person's life who might not be having a good time, and you know how powerfully people can change in the process of therapy. Yeah, I think as a criticism, I would say if we do that in our work, well, if I do that in my work when I'm doing person-centered work, it means I'm not accepting the client where they are, and then I'm wanting them to be in a better place. And it's a really sneaky trap because it sounds good. Who wouldn't want their client to feel better, right? But I think be careful because you might lose acceptance and for where they are, and it might put on what's the phrase, like a condition for them. Like they think, oh, my therapist needs me to get better.
This time is only useful to them if I'm showing some sort of progress.
Yeah, that might happen.
And I have noted, I think we've all kind of had an experience where maybe we can look back on and we're like, okay, sometimes we have to question, was it wanting the client to feel better, or was there also a part of us wanting to not be uncomfortable with the experience that maybe they're coming with, or the experience that they're having in this moment? Do I feel discomfort? Because it's like, how do I handle this? Like, oh, this is different. Like, let me see how I can alleviate some of this,
Yeah.
in a way.
And I think that's really important to be honest about. I think I have good capacity for hearing client content, but it's mixed across therapists. Some people have really hard time listening to self-harm, or they have a really hard time listening to relationship issues. It's like, oh, if there's an abusive partner or something like that, and they really can't hear the client at those times. They just want to try and help them as much as possible. And I think that's counter to the approach.
Yeah. Especially with some of those issues or those experiences that can be down the line fatal or an immediate crisis. I always feel like, you know what? If we cut it off there, who knows if they're going to open up further and share this, and we're going to be able to, and actually be honest and open about kind of what's going on should this continue to develop in severity.
Yeah. Yeah. Are people okay with the direction this is going? It's not necessarily just congruence, but I also hopefully haven't missold the talk, because if people want to talk more about congruence, we can, but I think it's quite a simple topic.
I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like kind of maybe going further into the topic and what that looks like can also maybe prompt hopefully some insights and input from others.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes because I wrote them down. So that internal congruence about knowing yourself, I think I've always assumed that's a thing that therapists kind of do, and like on the therapist journey, like you hope that you grow and know things about yourself. That to me seems like, especially in the person-centered approach, we are the tool, if you want to say it that way. I am the tool. Like we're not using strategies. We're not relying on those. I'm not saying those are bad. They can be good. But in my work, it's that they're coming to me for me and for what I can offer directly to them as a person. How much I can open my heart to this person, how much I'm able to receive from them, hopefully as much as I can, much as their experience. But I think knowing what's happening within you during the session is I think a cornerstone of the approach, and should be the starting point of that moment to moment, like checking in with yourself, like, oh, what's happening with me? What growing that inner congruence within yourself during the session. Oh, they said this. Oh, that's reminding me of something. How much am I able to put that aside? Oh, not much. Oh, I missed what they've said. Oh shit, what did they say? I can't ask them to repeat it. I'll just keep going. maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't.
I like, yeah, or maybe they can, maybe we can be like, oh, I didn't catch that, you know.
Yeah.
Can you repeat yourself?
Yeah, I think it would be really honest in a session to say, oh, hold on a minute, that's tipped me over so much. I've lost the connection for a moment, and I just need to gather myself. You know, nothing wrong with that. But I think in all of this, I keep bringing it around to the negative aspects of congruence, but I'm not sure if the room needs to hear them. That's where because I haven't heard from everyone, it's tricky for me to know whether the congruence mistakes are happening or if I need to talk about them. Maybe I will. I don't know.
Don't make me get my ducks out, people.
What's the ducks?
I give everyone duck at group supervision.
Is this where people start disconnecting?
And then I roll a wheel, and whoever it's the number it lands on us to put their duck in the middle and share something. But I'm not going to do that today.
Well, do you know the vibe currently a bit? It's like not everyone wants to be here. Does that make sense?
Okay, can I speak? So I absolutely just am trying to be a sponge.
Okay.
I'm coming from just my school experience has been, everything up to this point has been very directive. Yes. And to the point where I've had to do some recordings, we have one for the next couple semesters that I'll be spending with East Aurora, but I just did my first one, and they have specific skills that they even want you to get into this recording. So I'm just really trying to learn how to be non-directive and be fully, kind of purely person-centered, because that's just the complete opposite of everything that I've learned up to this point.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, Brittany. That helps me know where you're at with this. I want to give you advice. That's directive. I'm not claiming to be person-centered in my communication at the moment. My advice would probably be, if you're wanting to be non-directive, because I did this for a while, I said, okay, what am I even saying to my client? And I was reading Barbara Broadley. She's very good at the theory. Right. I recommend her. She's dead, so you can't talk to her, but you can read her books.
You just finished the reading from her.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So she's shit hot on the theory, and she analyzes a lot of her work. So she did an analysis, and she did the same of Rogers. Over 90% of her responses were empathic responses. So if you would like to practice being non-directive, you could limit yourself to only responding empathically to the client and keeping everything else to yourself. And you can do that as an experiment. I'm not saying you have to do that forever. And, you can try that, and it might be so uncomfortable you go, fuck this, I'm never doing it again. But you might do it and go, oh wow, the client's gone somewhere I never even imagined.
And what do you mean specifically by an empathic response? Like, would that be specifically like reflections of feeling, or you mean in whatever I say in response, just having empathy conveyed in the statement? Like, give an example.
It would be a communication that lets the client know that you're with them.
Okay.
I'm sorry I can't give an example. I'm really bad. I was thinking of trying to bring some of my recordings in, but I haven't asked my clients whether that's okay. They've only consented to my supervisor hearing it. But it's something I can potentially do in the future, he says, hoping he's made some good responses.
That would be great. Yeah, we have they have a curriculum, and they have some videos from Carl Rogers, Barbara Broadley, also some other therapists that are that in the person-centered realm, to kind of see kind of how that would work. But like I've always kind of looked at empathic responding as kind of like trying to show the client that I'm trying to understand things through their lens, through their try to be in their shoes as much as I can. And Brittany's coming from a program that's KCREP certified, right, Brittany?
Yes.
Yeah. So those programs, they really teach people to take the test to become a counselor. And also, in my KCREP program, I was banned from using client-centered as my primary approach. They would not accept any recordings, any sort of reflections that were based from a client-centered lens, because, they felt like it wouldn't prepare us to be in the current field that we're looking at right now. And settings that are, that make therapists utilize different theories with clients, whether it be CBT, DBT, and things like that. So,
okay. So, an empathic response. I know when I'm in therapy with my therapist, I'm saying whatever I'm saying in therapy, and she'll say something and it doesn't feel mechanical. It's not paraphrasing. It's not procedural. She says something and I feel so heard, understood, known, just met at a level that feels met, rather than just knowing someone understands me. That should be the effect of an empathic response. And usually with clients, they will let you know. So all of my clients, I know their tells. So when I give them what I think is an empathic response, I'll know whether it is because of they'll say like, exactly. Or they'll say, Or some of them won't say anything, but they'll look down for a few seconds, and they'll take it in.
Or like, right, and yada 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 yada, like something too sometimes.
You're hoping. I know this might be too mechanistic. You're hoping it doesn't derail them. It's not a question. You're not asking for more information. You're just saying, I'm with you. But you're saying, I'm with you without saying, I'm with you. Because if you say, I'm with you, they might just go, oh, okay.
I got it. I gotcha. Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Does that help, Brittany? Or I wish I had an example. Maybe if one happens during the chat, I will say, there it was.
No, that is helpful because it speaks to the fact that maybe it's not a specific skill. It's not just reflecting feeling or paraphrasing, reflecting content. It's the manner in which you are delivering whatever you're saying. Yeah,
but it's even more than that. I'll do my other speech. It's not congruence, it's my other speech I do. Person-centered therapy, I believe, is an internal process. In some way, I don't have to say anything, and I can still feel empathy and UPR towards the client. In person-centered therapy, we also want them to know that, so we talk to them, or we gesture, or we communicate in some way so that they know that and they feel that. But the first step is that internal, you're with them in their world, and that's an internal to you process in your head and heart.
That makes sense.
But I would also say, because I came at this with very little empathy and I've had to learn it, I think I've come a long way, but it's still not supernatural for me. You can be fairly mechanical with it, as to like sort of to get a rhythm or to get into the practice of it, and then sort of develop your own more natural way of doing it. The goal overall is for it to be genuine, but sometimes it can help to just reflect some stuff back, be a bit not clunky with it, but almost simple with it.
It even be like a few words, sometimes.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing with this is I've found it so much easier to learn this just by having it done to me, if that makes sense. Feeling it, and then very quickly it's like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, and then sort of aiming towards that. It's hard to describe, and it's hard to get from a book, I think.
Do you feel like it also, I think, I don't know, I feel like it also depends a lot on kind of like how connected you feel with the client. I don't know, sometimes if I feel like a client's a really good fit, I could naturally have that, but if they're not, and it may be just because of some of the stuff that I've experienced in the field, sometimes I just go into it, sometimes my judgments just take over, and I have a really hard time. And I think I also have to be aware of that, and also I think and be aware of what I take on at this point in my career.
Yeah.
What I take on as with working with people. Just because sometimes I can't break out of those judgments and I can't break out of that. Almost sometimes, and it sounds really fucked up, but sometimes resentments that can be a bit generalized towards certain client populations just from past experiences that I've had.
Yeah, I have colleagues who can't work with clients of a political stance. They just find it too hard, and they don't want to do the work to overcome that. They just go, nah, fuck that. But I think it's to know that that's our limitation. We all have different limits with that.
Agree with Brittany, where I'm just trying to absorb as much as possible, and I don't want to. I know a lot of people have said in the past in other presentations that they don't want to feel like an expert, just kind of like telling people like what to think or what to feel, or like how like just accept everything. But I'm just trying to. I guess when I do case management, I don't have to. I guess there's not really a requirement to practice person-centered, like not directly. I just have to like help clients with like their goals. So I have to find like I have to do the opposite because we only have 30 minutes to work on like applying for like housing or like to get certain things done. So sometimes when a client is like kind of derailing, I have to put them back on track. So I actually have to do like the opposite. But so I'm just trying to absorb and kind of see the viewpoint from like the counselor's or the therapist's perspective, and just trying to understand what that's like. Because usually if a client has a lot to say during like a case management, then I would advise them to make an appointment with their counselor, because they each have their own counselor, and the case management is just an additional thing that we offer here.
Blake, are you saying with that sometimes seems like they're starting counselling with you before they've got into counselling?
Yeah, like I think a lot of the clients get confused about what the case management appointments are for, because I just have to help them with their goals, which are like if they need help with housing, or if they like need to apply for a surgical procedure, and they need to be put on a wait list, then I help them get there. And sometimes when they go off topic, or if I like they're like talking about something and I feel awful just having to brush them aside because I can't divide my attention and also help them fill out like the application because there's only so much time, and then I have to cut them off, and I find myself doing like the exact opposite of congruence.
Yeah. You wish you could offer them more time.
And to be fair, like at the program that Blake works at, like so many of the clients like really adore Blake and their presence and almost, I don't know, I would argue maybe feel more connected and comfortable with Blake compared to maybe some of the therapists that they are assigned. And I personally believe that everyone's been given a curriculum regardless of what kind of program that they're in here or what role they're in, because I do believe that there's a client-centered can be integrated into both the case management and the counseling role. And while case management works on goals, I think having that empathic presence it can really be helpful and comforting and almost maybe sometimes be what they need in that moment to then get back on track and work towards kind of like the goal that they're trying to reach in the case management sector. So
Yeah. I also see no issue, Blake, with offering the conditions within that environment because they know that your job is to do these practical aspects. You're not being directive in the sense of guiding their inner process.
Yeah, I guess I could see it both ways. Where I know I only have a certain amount of time where we have to get things done, and then also, I like sometimes I have to establish like a connection. Some clients won't disclose things, or like they say they need help, like they won't tell me they need help with housing until they feel comfortable with it. So I've had that happen before as well, or they just need to get comfortable with it at first. And also sometimes I guess it's kind of similar where I would think, oh, you need help with housing, or like, oh, you're on house. Do you want to apply for housing? And actually, some clients don't want to. So then I kind of assume that for them. So I guess in that instance, when that happens, I feel like I should have first assess what is it that the client wants first, instead of just assuming what they want. Kind of like the same thing where you kind of where we were talking earlier about like wanting to change somebody or see their potential, but then that's actually seen as like not accepting them as they are. It's kind of similar to that, I think, where it's like what do you really want to work on? I know you're having issues being on house, but is that something that you want to resolve, or are you happy in the situation that you're at now and you just need help with something else, for example?
Yeah, so you can frame it up front as giving them more of a choice.
Yes, I'm not there to tell them what to do. I'm just there to help them with what they want to do.
Yeah. Nice. We're about almost an hour in. My attention's phasing a bit. So I was going to say a few minutes break. How does that sound?
maybe, does anyone have anything at 11?
I do have to go, but I do appreciate the talk, and it was really nice hearing again, kind of being reminded of it, and hearing everybody's input. Um, I, I, I know I guess it's not a requirement, but I do try to practice person-centered in case management when I can. I know that's not always possible, but just to hear it again, and it's just be reminded of like congruence in the definition and kind of what other people consider it to be and what others don't. It's really helpful for me to kind of get understanding, not only from my own perspective, but also from the other students, the interns here, and also Dr. Golden and Patrick, who are always practicing person-centered during their sessions. So I really appreciate it. And it's really nice seeing you again, Andy.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Blake. Good to see you too.
All right, bye everybody.
See you.
Hey.
5-10 minute break.
Yeah, let's resume at what do you think, 9:05 everyone? 10:05. 11:05 everyone?
that okay?
Alrighty.
I'll see you then.
We'll just use the same, or yeah, everyone can just close their stuff out while I'll be in the room. Okay.
It's going to be hard to know whether Brittany's back because she's not on the camera.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, everyone's back. What I said earlier when I said I was worried that it seemed like some people didn't want to be here. My point with that was I was seeing a lot of people who are attentive, but I wasn't getting any other information. So I can see that you're on the screen and that you're in the room here, but it's hard to know whether internally you're engaged with what I'm saying or whether you can't wait for it to be over. Do you know what I mean? So please let me know if there's something else you want to get from this, or you have questions around what I'm talking about, or you disagree, or anything like that. I'm trying to make it as personalized as possible, rather than just to keep reading my speech. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was hoping that as we went along, some reflections from experiences in session would be brought up, but I know Shubra has not started here yet, so she has not seen the client. Desiree, I'm not sure if you've been able to see any clients at your other sites you're working at here.
No, not yet. I haven't. I don't have my first client yet, so I thought it was interesting how before Blake stepped out, how they had mentioned about client-centered practice with case management. Just because I'm interested to see how that would look like, and I feel like now with not having a client just yet, I kind of want to hear some more input of what everyone else has to say about how that looks like in your practice.
Desiree, do you mean there what a session would look like and what might be said in a purely client-centered session?
Yes.
I think for me it comes back to what I was saying to Brittany. At the moment, my communication, I would say the only thing I'm trying to communicate with the client is that I get them. So that so I have pretty much stopped asking questions, and I ask a lot of questions naturally, so I've had to put that aside. That was quite a hard one for me to do, and really stay with the client's experience, and at the moment I'm trying to develop a more natural rhythm of response for myself, and that's a personal project, but the things I say to the people I work with are they don't have an aim. I'm not trying to deepen their experience. I'm not trying to progress therapy in any way. I'm just letting them know I hear them. I get what they're talking about. But it's not understanding. It's not like, yeah, I see where you're at. It's a way of saying it that really is felt. Again, I'm limited by it, but explaining it's really difficult. But that's the bulk of my session, hopefully, because I think that's what the therapy. Well, no, that communication isn't the therapy. The therapy, like I was saying earlier, is that internal process of the therapist, and that's the most facilitative to the client. But if you looked at my sessions, that's what you would see is empathic responses. And I was going to say, Brittany, there's a video of Carl Rogers. I think it's called Carl Rogers Counsels a Black Man, or Angry Black Man. It's a really, really good example of just shitloads of empathic responses.
actually started that one. I haven't finished it yet, but I've listened to some of it. I've been enjoying that one.
Yeah, and the fact that you enjoy it, I mean, I know why I enjoyed it, because he was getting him so spot on, and he was allowing that guy to go wherever he needed to go.
Yeah, and I do think that's one of the reasons I really do like watching his sessions and other people's sessions, because I try to envision like what I would have said to the client, and and then they like sometimes I'll pause it after the client stops talking, and I'll just kind of practice like what I would say, and sometimes it can just be so different from what what Carl Rogers or the other whatever therapist I'm watching says, and it's interesting, and I don't know if that means that I would have been wrong, but necessarily, but I don't know. This is just it's such an uncomfortable space that I'm in right now, because I just don't know if I'm being effective or doing the right thing. But I think being just trying to be guided by the empathy is probably a good start.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of imagining what you would say in response, but you're not getting the feedback that you need to know whether it is accurate or not. So you won't be able to see a client's reaction to what you're saying. I don't think there's really a way around it other than practice.
Yeah. And just having moments of like, oh, I feel so, oh gosh, that wasn't what I hoped it would sound like, or just like, ooh, that wasn't hitting.
Shubra, go on.
Yeah, I kind of have a follow from when you're talking about the directive and the non-directive approach. So I sometimes envision that, like when I start working with clients, I'd like to pair client-centered with CBT a little bit. So say for a directive approach, if a question or something takes a client to a point where where the thought pattern goes to something, we want to see that change in client. I just want to know, like, does it take away from the process, or does it have an overall impact in the long run in therapy, or does it derail it, and like we have to like again be person-centered completely to bring it back to where the client wanted it to be.
I think if you're wanting to be person-centered, then if you say something and it really moves them away from their experience, and they maybe have to think about things in the way you're saying it, then I think that does take away from their process. So I think I would class it as directive. Yeah. Is that what you're asking there? I'm not sure.
So like, you know how in CBT we are trying to change the thought patterns.
Yeah.
So if the directive approach is facilitating that, but the client isn't realizing just yet that this is where they should be headed, would that not be then, just because they don't know, or maybe they know but they don't know how to go there as their goal, would that make a difference in terms of saying that this is not what the client wanted in the moment, but that could be a good, like a future goal?
Do you mean a future goal that you'd be giving them?
Yeah, like if I were to, I don't want to say suggest, but if I were to just ask a question for more information, but they haven't thought of it in that way, for whatever situation they might be in, is it still me making them think something, or it's just that they haven't reached that point where that thought would be their own in sharing with me?
I think because you've asked them the question, it's you putting that in their head at that point. And then it's really hard to know whether they would have got there themselves. Who knows?
So overall, it won't really help.
I think when we're talking about different modalities, it can get very confusing because they all talk about help, and all therapies help. Otherwise people wouldn't do them, you'd hope. But within person-centered therapy, my understanding is the only way I want to help this person is by offering a certain set of conditions. And that's it. I believe those conditions are enough. And I think the other modalities say, well, you need to get them to think about things, or they should reach a certain emotional maturity or have an understanding about attachment. That might help. I don't mean that to disparage, but like that might help within that modality. That's their definition of help. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because then I think if you're trying to do some person-centered and some CBT, I think they have different goals. They have different types of help. So then that can be really messy. I'd find that hard to hold both, like in what I'm trying to offer the client.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, I'm going to go through some of the concerns, because this might help stimulate a bit of thought around what people think should be happening in person-centered therapy. So I said that thing about I don't think self-disclosure is necessary. I really believe that. I know it seems cool, seems like, oh, I'm being authentic, or like I'm supercharging the session or something. It might feel like that when you do it, but I think it's counter to the essence of person-centeredness. And 9 times out of 10, I think we're just bringing in our own stuff when we do that. And if I pause and think about it, I go, oh yeah, that was my own kind of thing going on, generally. So I think then it can be quite easy to use that as an excuse for some pretty bad practice. So you can say, oh, I was being congruent, when actually it's just a mistake within the person-centered framework. And I think that's important to acknowledge. It's okay to make mistakes. Like, I don't know how else you'd understand how you're working with a client. The bugbear I have is that the conditions can be separated. So if you ever hear someone say like, oh, I was really congruent that session, or oh, and I was really empathic the next one. In my opinion, they're all one. The metaphor I use is a cake. And in person-centered therapy, I'm offering my client the cake. And that cake is made up of empathy, UPR, congruence. But all of those things together is how the therapy works. I don't just sit there and give them UPR and none of the others. And I don't just sit there. Look, I don't think you can split out congruence. It doesn't theoretically make sense. But some people go, oh, I'll be really real with my client. I'll say what's happening for me. They put all the other conditions aside and they go, here we go, it's congruence time. And I knock the client over the head with some of their own feelings. It ain't person-centered. That's what I'm saying. Oh yeah, quite the idea that I think it's entertaining to watch. I don't know if people have seen, like, you know, therapy in TV and films, and it gets to that moment and the therapist says something like quite controversial, but it's quite exciting to see, and it's like, oh, and it looks like, oh, now they're really getting into it. Like the therapist says something like, you need to shut the fuck up and just be real today. And it's really like, it's like, wow, this is what it isn't. Okay, it's really rude. Don't do that in your work. And some people do think that's like the spice of therapy. Well, who was that bloke? Fritz Perls was a bit like that. He liked a lot of drama. The Gestalt guy, he loved a lot of spice.
Confrontational, maybe, in a way?
Sometimes, yeah. Just like something, they would get to the point in the therapy and they go, got to spice this shit up, and they just throw something in. That's definitely not person-centered. This is too easy though, isn't it? I'm just making straw man arguments for what isn't person-centered now. Maybe this isn't fair. And it's, okay, so some people say, well, if I don't say how I feel, then I'm not being real. You understand that idea? So like, if the client says something and I think, oh, fuck, what a prick. And I know, I feel that inside. Some people think, well, if I don't bring that to the client, well, then I'm not being real.
And are we talking self-disclosure with are we like what a prick meaning like we think the client's a prick, or if they're talking about someone or something?
Oh no, I mean
they're like, oh, that was a prick for saying that.
No, I mean my client tells me something, and I'm just disgusted by it, and in my head I go, this guy here, my client, ugh. And some people think, oh well, to be real, to be congruent, to be genuine, you need to bring that in to the therapy. Okay? So the reason that's wrong in person-centered work is because if I think my client's a prick, I do not have any of the conditions for him. And if I do not have any of the conditions, it ain't person-centered. It might be my reaction, part of me, that is my real reaction. I might go, you did what? But I'm going to try my best to get back on track with that person. And definitely that would be a lapse in the session. And I'd be like, whew, that was some sweaty moments.
Yeah.
And the client might notice that. They
may notice it in our body language, in our facial expressions.
Because they might go, cool, Andy, you responded beat by beat really consistently until I said that thing.
Maybe we stutter. I know that sometimes I'll stutter if someone says something in a way that impacts me a certain way. And I think that I'll get jumbled. And I'll and then it'll just sound stupid when I say. And then I'll probably tense up with it.
Yeah. So it's strange because in some ways we can't hide from our clients.
Yeah.
But also I don't want to put that on the client.
No. Right.
In that example, so what if said client notices that reaction on you as a therapist, and they ask about that reaction, or they want further information of why? Like, would it be appropriate to disclose that if the client is asking you?
Yeah, really good question. It's up to you as a practitioner. I would. When I work with young people especially, sometimes they say stuff and I just think, what? And they'll say, oh, you didn't like that. And I'll go, no, I didn't. That's part of it. If they're asking about what's happening with me, 9 times out of 10, I don't mind telling them what's happening. You might have your own limits. If someone asks about your personal life, you might say, well, actually, I don't want to talk about that. There's no strict guidance.
One of my instructors for that had said, if something either you heard for some time and doesn't really align with how you feel, and there's a certain expression on your face, and she said she said it's bound to happen at some point. She said just own it, or you could just say it oh, this is new to me, would you mind educating me a little bit more on that, or something along those lines.
So Shubhra, my advice there would be don't say anything unless your client does.
But wouldn't sometimes they see a certain expression and they don't say anything to you, but they might not feel that connected to you anymore, in that moment or during that session?
That's possible. That might happen. They may never come back to you because of that moment.
Yeah.
It's possible, but in my experience, when clients are dealing with stuff like that, it could be really shameful or really difficult. Bringing it to anyone is the hard part, and just the fact that you're sitting there and staying with them means a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult, Shubhra. Yeah. Because I think if you go to your therapist and you're like, I like to do this and that, and they're just like, what? No client wants that experience, right?
And in a way, some clients will actually say that. In a way, there are some that'll say that to see if they can get a response out of you. There are some of those clients that will do that, especially if they're forced to be there. Youth, adolescents will say that stuff.
Yeah.
To try to test you to see if they're going to break you, or they're going to try to make you respond like maybe a teacher or their parent would. But when you don't, and then there's a sense of, wow, like I could really say this and that, and they're not going to be, they're going to hear me. And that can be extremely powerful, I found, for teens and youth especially.
Yeah. Young people will test you with that shit all the time. It's great. Unless you're not into it, in which case, stay away from them. But yeah, I think I almost want to keep coming back to that, Shubha, because I think you might get someone like that. They say it rumbles you, you show it, they don't come back. You got to know that, own that, and say, well, if someone said that in future, would I be okay with it? Talk about it. Supervisor, friends, whatever. However you work through that, so that the next time it happens, it doesn't rumble you. If you want to, that's the choice. There's no demand in this work. Everyone works to their limits. So I might work with someone and go, well, you saying that's my limit, and if that limit of mine is a problem for them, then maybe that's the limit of the work. But my personal goal is to be as limitless as possible, so I will try and work through it. But that might mean a rupture, or I'll make a mistake and I lose a client. Who knows? But the disgust is a good one. That came up in another workshop. It's really hard to hide. It's such a immediate one.
I have one more question, which is generally regarding client-centered. So then, if the client is unable to make their own rational decisions, how do you still stick to being client-centered when they are not reaching their goals on their own?
That can be difficult. So in this way of working, we don't have any requirements of the client. The client can come and make the same mistake. They can reach the wrong conclusion. They can turn the wrong way 100, 1,000, 10,000 times. Yeah, I know, right? But that difficulty is part of the work. I have a colleague. She finds it very difficult to work with someone in an abusive relationship, because that cycle inherently repeats until that person has enough self-worth that they can leave. But until that happens, they repeat. And it can be too much to hear week after week after week. And then it might be tempting to try something else, to try and help them even more, to try and do something else. As soon as you do that, in my mind, you've stepped away from person-centered work, you're doing something else, but I completely understand why it happens. And I'm sorry it's not the answer you wanted. Yeah. I find it hard working with alcoholics. Partly for that reason. I don't really have any. No, at the moment I don't. And maybe energetically they don't come to me, like in the universe, because I'm impatient, and I think it's a hard one for me to work with.
I just feel like in that situation, how do we even know that the sessions are working to even an extent or?
Yeah. Really, really important question within person-centered work. What am I doing? This person comes and sees me week by week. They're paying me. What's going on? Is anything happening? Am I actually helping this person? Yeah. Important questions. I would say part of me, and I know it sounds a bit naive, says if they keep coming, they're getting something. I don't think that's always true, but I think that's my main belief with it.
They keep coming out of their own free will, in a way.
Well, you don't know how free it is. They might have a condition of worth that says, oh, I'll keep going and pleasing my therapist. He wants me to keep going.
Very true.
So in those examples, they're coming because they think I want them to keep coming. But otherwise, I need to assume client autonomy to some degree. So if they keep coming back, I hope they're getting something. But you can also have that conversation. Are you getting from therapy what you want? Is this going how you want? However you phrase it, you'll know the person's language when you work with them. Is this moving how you thought it might? The way I work is extremely direct and simple. So when someone comes to me, they usually know within 10 minutes if it's their kind of thing or not. So then they go, you're not telling me what to do. And I go, yeah, true. And then they say, I want to be told what to do. And I go, well, someone else a different modality might help you with that.
Yeah.
That's an important part with person-centered. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
There has to be a degree of the client taking responsibility with this work.
Yeah.
One of the questions I wanted to ask at the start, but we kind of half answered it. I was very interested in how much does everyone believe in the person-centered approach? Like scale of 1 to 10, where 1 you think like it's not worth the paper it's written on, and 10 you're like arm in arm with Carl Rogers himself. I was interested because it seems like it's not in vogue in general society at the moment.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I came from a CBT, DBT background in my trainings as a bachelor's level in settings I worked in, and then throughout my master's. I had workbooks upon workbooks. And in my first therapy session I ever had, I sat down and I opened a workbook, and I was reading it to the clients, and I was having them read it through, and they didn't even know if that's what they wanted. And I did that for everyone. I wasn't even hearing what they were saying. And I felt like I was rushing to get an answer. And I didn't retain anything. I didn't retain any clients. I had over 40 that I was assigned. I retained like 10. None of them, not even 10, probably 8. Then I went into private practice and did the same stuff. No one showed up. They left. And then I came here and I was completely... I was talking about things with Dr. Bowman. I would bring things up, and I learned that it's okay. I learned for the first time that it was okay to practice client-centered therapy, and it felt like the most natural thing for me. And I felt so relieved. I felt like there was a weight off my chest, and I could be I could really hear a person what they were saying, and I could really start to develop a connection with clients that I never allowed myself to do. I was always focused on, okay, well, I got to throw something in by the end of the time so that I can make sure that I showed that I did something. In my mind, that was my, so from there, it's been on a 1 to 10 for me. It's become a 10, just because I've never experienced the connection in my role in this work until I decided to fully adopt that. So.
It's nice. I like that because it sounds like in that it's almost like you were given permission to practice.
I was given permission, yeah, and I had never been given. I literally was not given permission in any jobs I had before I worked with Dr. Goldman to be in that, to do that.
Yeah, because ultimately it's a very natural way of being with someone. I think, in fact, a lot of this work is about removing our own blocks to just being able to sit lovingly with someone.
Yeah, and integrating things can be, if they suggest things, it can be integrated into the treatment if that's something that you're able to do. I want to also preface this that, everyone's doing different, has different interests and theories and things like that. I'm not trained in a lot of different theories, so that is not I believe that that's not something that we should integrate here, in a way. Unless it's something that I have been trained in or Dr. Goldman has been. I think we should be mindful of that in our work here. We are dealing with a person. There's liability that comes with this, and throwing different things at the kitchen sink to see what hits, because we want to do that, because we find it interesting to do that. I believe is not the way to go. So, that's my soapbox. But
how about others? People drinking from the person-centered Kool-Aid by now at the end towards this talk? Doralee, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Definitely here at EAC, person-centered therapy is the way to go because you are dealing with a person and there is a liability that comes with that. I like the master's program, the MSW program that I'm in. I've only taken 2 clinical social work classes that have been very restrictive and have really only covered like directive work like CBT, and then also like psychosocial or like I don't even know, like psychosocial theories, like attachment theory, and like other theories like that. So, like since I started here at EAC, like I've really just dabbled into person-centered therapy, I'm just looking forward to continuing to work in private practice and see like what my theoretical framework will develop in. So.
Yeah, I think that's what I heard from when you first spoke, that you were doing it, but you weren't sure whether it's where you would end up.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Nice. Vladanka, you held your hand up. Yeah.
I want to say, I love person-centered therapy, and I just need to more practice myself. Therapy is perfect, just me to fit, to belong. But I think I do. It's just I need more practice, more awareness. I'm totally aware of myself and I can control it, but I want to be more natural, that I am aware and it's easy for me.
Yeah.
So, but I feel that for some clients, they want to fix it fast, and then some of them just really need guidance. They ask, you can tell and how they present the problem, and they know, oh, this happened to me. I'm really always sad and talking and then explain everything they know, and then stop. Now it's your turn. What should I do? So I thought a couple of times like that. And I was like, no, it's you. It's about you. What do you want? You will fix what you want. You will, work. I will help. I'm here. But I feel like they want, they really struggle to have someone like push them in some. They will believe like, oh, my therapist said I want there. Oh, that's the best way. So I feel like I have even friends who changed like couple therapists, and they said like, oh, nobody helped me. But I know it's them. But for my friends, I feel like they're not aware where is the problem. They think it's theirs. They always think it's someone else.
Yeah. So Vladanka, those people are a good example of they might just not be a good fit for person-centered. But there's usually, I think this is pretty much every private client I have, I see people for an hour. And on average, they spend the first session 40 minutes doing their life story up until that point. And then they close the book, they put it down, and they look at me. And they go, okay. And I think that's a crossroads, isn't it? Because they're asking for something. So, and they might have an assumption that's how therapy works. Oh, you're going to tell me to do something, or you're going to help me learn something, or and they'll sometimes literally say, like, how does this work? But I think that's the decision, that's the fork in the road where they either go within themselves, and you feel it in the room, and they begin to engage, and then it's my job to help them engage in that. And then that's person-centered therapy. Once that can start going, but it might go the other way. So if a woman comes to me and says, "You're not going to tell me anything, are you?" And I'm like, "Not in this approach. No, sorry." And then she's like, "Okay, well, thanks for listening today. I'm not coming back."
Yeah, I think it's more like not more, but in this world now, how it's going, they want fast. Like 2-3 sessions. Just tell me what to do and thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
So give them like.
Sometimes in the first session, they'll ask that.
Yes. I found it first session. I will tell you today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like to go off of that too, like I have a client where like she always starts each session talking about like how she's struggling with depression, and she just like talks about her week and her struggles, and then like it just grows super silent in the session, and then she's like, so what do I do? Like, do you have any advice? Like, what should I do? And I'm like, like, that's not really like what we do here. So I just, the majority of the session, I just reflect on her experience, and like I offer psychological contact, and kind of just follow like person-centered therapy in that approach. So it's like how so my question is like, how do you deal with like silence during a session? Do you just kind of let it like happen? I find myself having to take like a lot of deep breaths during session and just kind of let the silence happen.
Yeah, in some of my sessions with long established clients, we'll have like 3 minutes where we don't say anything. And it's like rock and roll, that's part of the session, and then they'll do a big breath and then keep talking. But I think it's more of an issue with new clients, because sometimes the silence with a new client means like, well, come on, your turn. It can mean that. It might not, because it might be them doing that, well, will I go inside? Will I try and figure this out myself? It's hard to know if it's just silence, But I wanted to ask, when she's talking about her week and when she's talking about depression, are you making responses that are received by her?
Responses that are received by her.
Like, so she might say like, I'm having such a tough week, sometimes I can barely get out of bed. Do you say things to meet her where she's at?
Yes, I give empathetic responses.
How do they go down?
I'm sorry, what?
How does she respond?
She responds well. She's like, okay, I get that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I see it that way. And then it just kind of like grows silent. And I'm like, oh man.
My concern there, if she's saying I can see it that way, then it might not be empathy. Because in a response, ideally, you say something where they just go, yeah, that is, I'm struggling with that. Yeah, I can't, Like they keep going with where they're at. They don't have to think about your response. They just feel that you're with them.
One thing Dr. Goldman shared with me is like in an interaction, if it was to be transcribed, sometimes like it almost, if you can't really tell who the therapist is as you're reading the transcription of an interaction, that could really speak to whether you're also kind of really applying a client-centered approach in the exchange as well.
It's a nice way of saying it. I've never heard it. I want to chew that over some more to whether I think that's accurate. But I like the idea that you're basically speaking as them for a few moments. And some empathic responses are even framed from me, but I'm speaking as them. Like I say, like some days I just feel like I can't get out of bed. But it's an empathic response, what they've said. But it might be like last week, most of the week, you just spent looking around your bedroom. Not much happened. And that kind of thing. That's the response where they can keep being where they are, but they know you're there as well.
Right.
They don't have to do any work. They're not having to question. I mean, they might question. Actually, sometimes an empathic response can get them to go, oh, hold on, yeah, you're right, that is what I'm doing. It can enliven them sometimes. But usually with a depressed person, it's more like a lot of the time you're going to just be with them a lot, because generally depression is less of a quick change type one. You might be doing a lot of empathic responses for a long old time, and it can be very small changes. But again, Doily, I think it's hard to know without the actual transcript or the recording. It's hard. I wasn't there, so don't take me too seriously when I'm giving this information.
I do value your perspective and like your insight, so I appreciate it, and I also appreciate you, Patrick, too, for your input.
Oh, thanks, Dorothy.
One of my instructors during our pre-practicum used to tell us, like, start getting comfortable with silence. She's like, there's going to be times, and the awkward, if there is going to be an awkwardness, then it should be coming from, like, you as a counselor. Get comfortable with it. So.
Yeah. Did they give any tips on how to do that?
So she basically was like, you don't have to, like, just be, like you were saying, like, be with the client. Tell them that you are not getting uncomfortable with the client through your face expressions or any gestures or anything, or like trying to give, like, body language should not read that you're waiting for the client to say something. So that is what she had said. So.
Yeah. And also being silent with someone you've just met as a human interaction, it can be quite vulnerable. Can be quite not quite exposing, but maybe exposing, but it can be a delicate place. So I also get why a lot of clients try to avoid that. And some people have a real issue with silence, and that's part of their thing. Like, they won't let the session go silent. But I think generally it's a good idea to be able to hold the silence when it comes up.
I think it would be probably beneficial for everyone to hear from you. Have you had experiences where the silence has gone on for a long period of time, and where what has your experience been? I guess I should say, when the silence has gone for a long period of time, maybe longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If you've
one time I said to that person, "You okay?" I don't know if it was the right thing to say, because with that person it would happen so often. I was thinking of ways to let them know I'm still there with them. But it's hard when it's silent because like they know you're there. You're either in the room or you're online with them. But I wanted to try and maintain more contact than just watching someone sort of stare off into space. And it's hard to know, like, is that their process? Is that what they're up to at the moment? Well, yeah, obviously it is because that's what they're doing. Do we just let them do that in person-centered work? Yeah, I think mainly, yeah. Because who knows? I mean, oh God, someone had a recording where there was a huge silence, and then the person just carried on talking. Sometimes we won't know what's going on for the client. And the other thing with person-centered work, it's really hard because we don't have a side-by-side. So if someone's silent for 5 minutes and I say something at the 5-minute mark, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't said something. I don't have the exact comparison. So I cannot say that what I said was helpful or not, because I don't know if it would have been more helpful to shut up and stay with the silence. But I think I would err more on stay with the silence, let them have their process. But it might really depend who you're working with. I mean, it always depends who you're working with. But that would be my default, would be don't say anything. But I know I have quite long silences, and my therapist will sometimes say something, and I feel very connected to her when she says that. So it has that effect. I don't feel disrupted in my process.
I feel that is a more constructive silence instead of a client not knowing what to say or responding to what a client or counselor might have said. Or,
yes,
you know.
That's a really good distinction in silence. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Whether your client is a new client sitting there going, "This is boring," yeah. And it is boring. Go on.
I feel like you on beginning can be awkward because we don't know. But later, if we are connected, we can guess, we can feel it on it, right? If we know client, we saw client for some quite time, so maybe we will know how, like, I don't know, I always feel like connect like energy, how we are connected. So sometimes it's not like uncomfortable, even if it's long.
Yes, you've worked with this person for a while. You know they're going to take a minute. Yeah.
We can guess if we know, like. But on the beginning, yeah, I struggle with silence.
Mm. Yeah.
A lot of thoughts in my mind. I can't be like just present. It's like, what now?
That's what goes on your end, is you'll have a lot of thoughts and you'll want to do something.
Because I don't feel comfortable like in that moment. But I was like reminding, it's not about me. Just like be there.
Yeah, but the silent makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Hmm. Do you know why?
I don't know. Maybe because I have a lot of questions, and I'm like reminding, don't ask, be there. So maybe that. I don't know. I'm still in the beginning, so.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes we think due to the silence for some of us, I don't know, is like, oh, should I be saying something? Am I doing something wrong? Am I dropping the ball here? I think it's okay to be transparent of like, I feel stupid, I don't know, I feel incompetent in this moment, or I don't feel like I'm doing something right. Because that's real. It's a real experience we all have. I still have it. I'm like, fuck, especially with people that I've been working with for a while. It's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Is the flow up today? Are they done with this?
Yeah.
I don't want them to leave because I feel so connected, but maybe they're done. And it's like sometimes our mind can just go to these places in the silence, and that could be uncomfortable for us sometimes too.
Yeah, yeah, Patrick, you made me think about how it's in my work. I feel like I'm nearly always moving into the unknown with the client, and especially early on, that's a bit scary, uncomfortable. I can't be the expert because I don't know where we're going or what we're talking about. I don't know how we're going to do it. And especially early on, I did feel a responsibility, like, well, they're coming to me, I'm the therapist, they're paying, this is a professional agreement, I'm supposed to give them something. Surely I'm supposed to help them step into the unknown and be like clever about it and know what I'm doing. So yeah, that happens. There's only a few minutes left, and it feels like a good enough time to wrap it up so we don't start anything chunky.
I appreciate you so much for taking some time out of your life and to answer some questions and go where everyone kind of was going, with this. And I think everyone just starting off and still being so new, and even not so new, can feel really feel like there's a lot of takeaways people have from this today. So I really, really appreciate it, Andy.
You're very welcome. I hope it was useful. I also think that I try to be as person-centered as possible in this delivery. I mean, it's not therapy what I'm doing here, but hopefully sort of some of the ideas bleed through in just the whole, in the gaps, if that makes sense. Yeah, I hope it's been useful. Thank you everyone else for coming. Good job lasting 2 hours. Well done everyone.
It feel like 2 hours. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it so much. I really appreciate it.
Sure. You're very welcome.
I enjoyed
I
it.
agree with Patrick, it didn't feel like 2 hours.
Cool. I was going to say, if anyone has follow-up questions, someone has my email, so feel free to ask, send stuff over. You might be thinking, hey, what if this happens in a session? How would you do with this person-centeredly? Ping it over. I'll let you know.
It's very generous of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Sure. You're welcome. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.